Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be reviewing a Peter Gabriel album and I'm going to be looking at the album So here. So this was requested by VinylCollectorJames, who is a massive fan of Peter Gabriel, and I recently purchased this album at a record fair a couple of months back. So he asked me to review it, so that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. I will give a bit of background information about the album, then go over then show you my vinyl copy of it, and then go over each of the album songs. I'll score each song out of 10, and then those scores I will use to give us an overall percentage for the album. So the album was Peter Gabriel's 5th solo album, released on the 19th of May in 1986. As an album, it's notable because this was his first non-self-titled album. His last 4 had all been called Peter Gabriel, and in part due to pressure from his record company, who actually wanted him to actually come up with a name for one of his albums, and that to stand a chance of have a bit more commercial success. Also, in terms of the music on here, it was a departure for Gabriel, moving away from the more experimental nature of the previous 4 self-titled albums, and they try to fuse that sort of style with world music, but then also incorporating a more 80s pop influence on the album. So you get a real mix of musical styles and influences on this album. Lineup as well of musicians he uses on here is also really fantastic, including Tony Levin, very famous bass player, David Rhodes on guitar, Stuart Copeland, who was previously in the Police, provides percussion on many of the album songs, and then we also get a guest appearance from Kate Bush on vocals. When the album was released, it was a huge commercial success. I can't lie, it was a massive album. Really brought Peter Gabriel into the mainstream, and was an international hit. Number 1 in the UK, number 2 in the US, certified 5 times platinum in America. So not too sure what sort of sales that represents, but there is an awful lot of albums sold, and certified triple platinum over here in the UK. Critical reception to this album was equally enthusiastic, praised on its release for its fusing of world music and pop, it was nominated for the 1986 Grammy for Album of the Year. It didn't win it though. It lost to Paul Simon's Graceland, and as many of I'm a massive fan of Paul Simon. I definitely prefer Graceland, but I won't get into what deserves it more than that. But for me, I prefer Graceland to this one here, and again it's a very similar sort of album, exploring world music and fusing it with sort of pop music and that. So it is ironic both these albums were released in the exact same year. This is considered a really great album. Was ranked at 187 on Rolling Stones magazine's 500 greatest albums list. So a really popular and well loved album. So I'm now just going to show you the vinyl copy of it here. I bought this at a record fair a couple of months back. I'm sure you've seen it in my vinyl update. So yeah, pretty plain cover, just him basically. The back's even more plain there. So very minimalistic design on this one here. Not a gatefold, just the lyrics in here. There they are there. And then the record is again a very simple label design to this one. I'm now just going to go over the album's 8 tracks. I'm going to score each song out of 10, and then those scores I will use to give us a percentage score for the album. So it opens up with the song Red Rain, and I've given this a 7 out of 10. I think this is a decent opener. Very 80s sound, very sort of a lot drum machines and various bits all this song here. Lyrics for this one are quite well, you listen to them, you just think, oh, you're just singing about Red Rain, but you really it's about a dream he had when he saw I think it was rain in blood or something like that. So yeah, quite disturbing lyrics to this song, but it is a good song. It's quite an uplifting track as well, I find. Also Stuart Copeland plays hi-hat on this song. In the introduction, it's the first sound drop we hear. The reason why like it's a 7 and not like an 8 or like even like a 9 out of 10 is because it just goes on for too long. That is the problem with like many of the songs on this album. They're all about 5 to 6 minutes in length, and they kind of get boring towards like the sort of like the 4 or 5 minute mark. It kind of is like, well, like when we're going to end this thing, and like that's sort of what I feel like with this song here. But overall, it is a good song. What kind of goes on a little bit too long for me. Now the second song is probably one of the most popular songs on the album. It is Sledgehammer, and this was the first single from the album. And it was actually like a last-minute addition to the album. It was like the last song, like what they recorded, as all the musicians were just packing up for the day. And then Peter Gabriel says, "Can we try one more song?" And then he does Sledgehammer, which really gave the album like a massive hit to start off with, and like released like ahead of like the album, I think. So that like yeah, it did like lead the way to like the album becoming like a huge hit. As for the song, it is a great song. Very sort of 60s soul influence, quite like Otis Redding sort of sound to it. Just a great pop song. Reason why I'm not giving it a 10 is like a very similar reason to Red Rain. It goes on a bit too long for me. You kind of like, you get like the main song, which is really good, like you could have like a Big Dipper, I'll Be Your Sledgehammer, like that sort of bit. But then it goes to like a bridge, and like you think, oh right, this is nice, but then like I want the chorus again. It just doesn't happen. He just sort of does the bridge and then it sort of fades out. And like I kind of feel like that's what I like. That's what like lets it down. Like it's like an interesting structure to it. But like I'm always like wishing like for like the chorus to come back round again, because it is just such a great song. And like, yeah, like as I said, the first single, this was a #1 hit in like the US charts, and like Canada as well, and like hit #4 in like the UK. That was probably part in due to like a really ingenious music video, great like animation, really like early sort of stock like animation. It's a fantastic video. Certainly like if like you haven't like watched it, do like go and watch that like after this video, because it is a fantastic music video.
Don't give up, 'cause you have...
Now track 3 is Don't Give Up, and I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Now this will probably cause a bit of controversy, because this is one of like the most popular songs on the album. But for me, I think it's a rather slow, rather lifeless song. Quite political lyrics in like this one. Sort of like he's like talking about like unemployment and like poverty in like the 80s. So it's like a duet with him and like Kate Bush. So he's sort of like this guy like who's out of like a job, but she's providing like this support, like saying like don't give up to him. So like the sentiment's like quite nice like the song, but for me it isn't. It just like is like a great song. Again, it drags on far too much. It kind of just goes on and on and on it for me. This was a single as well. It reached #9 in the UK charts, but for me it isn't a favourite. It like just kind of like sits in like the middle like of the album for me. Filler material. I know that is going to sound really harsh to Peter Gabriel fans, but yeah, like I'm not a fan of this song. Now, closing side 1, we have a song called That Voice Again, which I'm giving an 8 out of 10 to. Now I really like this one here. It isn't one of like the most popular songs like on the album. It wasn't a single. It was probably like one of like the only songs that not to be released like as a single like on this album. And like it is like a good track. It's sort of like the lyrics about sort of consciousness and like people hearing like voices like in like the heads and that. But it is a great song. Got a great percussion on it, great rhythms throughout the song, and like effective lyrics as well. So like I would like have to give it like an 8 out of 10. Reason why like it's not like a 9 or like a 10 is like it's just not a very like memorable song. Like again, like I find it hard to like think of like how like the song goes now, but certainly from like the notes I took, like I really liked it like when it was on. So yeah, like a good closer to side 1 there. Now we open up side 2 with a track called In Your Eyes, and I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. This is more a traditional sort of ballad love song, but I really like it. I really like the feel of this one, really like the sound to it. Features like these African singers in like the chorus, but I think worked really well. Adds like a real warmth to like the song, which I think really works. A single from the album peaked at #26 in the US charts. Like a little fact here, this song was originally supposed to close the album. However, it was moved to like the start of side 2 because like the bass on like this song, like you'd lose some of like the sound quality the closer you got to like the center of the record. So they decided like let's just tag it on like the start of like side 2. And like despite it not like intending to be there, I really think it works like as like a side opener. Like I really think it works well as that. And like yeah, like one of like the best songs like on the album for me. And like I'm sure that like I knew it as well like before like I went into it. Like I'm sure like I read it was in like a film or something. So like I probably like I've heard this song like before, but like just not realised it was like Peter Gabriel and that. But yeah, like a good solid love song. Next one up here is a track called Mercy Street. And I'm giving this a 6 out of 10. Again, maybe some people might be saying, oh god, you can't go that low with it. But for me, it is quite a slow, dreary song, is like the words I would describe this one here. Lyrics on this one are like about like an American poet called Anne Sexton. And like the backing track to this one was originally recorded in like Rio de Janeiro. However, when they got to the studio, they played it by accident 10% slower than like they had like recorded it, but they liked the sound to it, so like they kept it, and like it gives it like this quite a haunting mood, quite a mystical mood to it, and like it is like intriguing to listen to, and like it's a very bare song, and like it's certainly like a thinking song. Like it's not one what you can just sort of flip it like on like your turntable and like instantly enjoy. You really have to listen to like the lyrics to this one to really like appreciate it. And like yeah, like a 6 out of 10. Maybe I'm being like a little bit too harsh there. Like I could maybe up it to like a 7 for this one. But like overall, it isn't like one of like my favourites like on the album. Like it's like again like it drags quite a bit, and like it's just like not that very memorable like as a song. Now the penultimate track is a song called Big Time. And this would be a 7 out of 10 for me. It kind of feels like out of place coming straight after like this really slow, subtle track. We then get this like huge sort of 80s production song. Lyrics on this one are like about like consumerism and like success, very much like things that Peter Gabriel was critical of like in like the 80s. So this song sort of takes like the piss out of that. It is like a great sort of fast-paced and more like upbeat, funky number. But for me, it gets annoying quite quickly, and like that chorus or like the big time bit, it does really get like annoying, because like this song like it is like about like 5 minutes long again. Like if it was short, like if it was about 3 minutes, then I could definitely say oh like I quite like this one. But since it just drags on, like it like has to be like a 7 for me. Like I just don't think that it like really deserves that amount of time like on the album. And then we close with what I would say is the weakest one on the album. It is a song called We Do What We're Told. And I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. Again now, Peter Gabriel fans are probably like, what are you thinking? But for me, a 4 out of 10. A pretty weak closer. But like it was like a bit more like intriguing. Like when like I read what the song is like actually about. It is about an American social psychologist called Stanley Milgram, who like carried out like experiments like on humans to sort of like work out more about like the brains and like how like humans think of that. And like one of like his experiments was, I think like yeah, people were sort of like asked or like encouraged or like sort of persuaded to give like electric shocks to like other people, and like it is subtitled here Milgram's 37, and like I believe that 37 refers to like the 37% who like didn't like give like the like electric shocks to like the people. I think that like so like with that in mind, like it is like an interesting concept like for a song, but it's very slow, very much like just some sounds with like a chant behind it. But then it closes the album quite well, like with like a little verse here, like it's like one dream, one love, what is it? Yeah, like one doubt, one voice, one war, one truth, one dream, or like the last few lines. That really wraps up the album quite nicely. Like I like that bit, like at like the end. But like as like an actual song, it isn't one that like I would ever play like out of like isolation. It's just is like quite like an experimental track, and like really just filler for me. But overall, it would be a score of 70% for this album. For me, an interesting album, to say the least. It is unlike anything I've ever really listened to before. Quite like, at some points, it's quite poppy, quite like accessible, but then it does have like its darker moments like in it as well. And like quite like a moving album as well in terms of like the lyrics. But for me, it like kind of lacks like melody at like some points like in this album, and like the songs, they do go on a bit. Like I certainly understand like the acclaim this album gets as like being like one of like the greatest of like the 80s, but it isn't for me personally. I personally, like, I'm not like a fan of like Peter Gabriel, but I would say if like you're looking like to get into him, this would be like a good starting point. Like, it is quite poppy, but it does have like its more like experimental side to it as well. So like, I think that like this record definitely did like strike a chord like with like the public when it was released, but I kind of feel like it seems a little bit dated now, some of like the songs, but it is still a half decent album though, which like maybe in like a couple of months time like might have like grown on me more. Like, this was just really like my first impressions like of the album, because I've only really listened to it about 3 times. So yeah, like, I hope you have like enjoyed like this review, or like for Peter Gabriel fans maybe like you haven't, if like you disagree with me, like please let me know, and like I'll be interested to sort of hear like what people think like of this album. So yeah, I will see you all next time. Goodbye.